Welcome to In Great Company. This is the podcast where we explore how thriving businesses build relationships at scale. Hosted by Sindhu Shavastav and Danielle Tourette, we sit down with top executives to uncover the strategies that create stronger connections, engage teams, and lasting success. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to In Great Company, the podcast where we explore how meaningful relationships fuel extraordinary business outcomes and deeply fulfilling careers. I'm Sindhu, the CEO of We Crush AI and We Crush Events.
And I'm Danielle, CRO here at We Crush Events. And today's episode is a special one. Our guest is someone who's led transformation from the inside of billion-dollar SaaS companies and is now doing it on her own terms. And this episode is brought to you by We Crush Events, your ultimate partner in corporate event planning. At We Crush Events, we do just that, crush events. We know that a company's event is a reflection of its brand, and we're here to make sure it's nothing short of perfect. Whether you need help sourcing vendors or a full-scale, all-hands-on-deck approach, our team has the skills and connections to bring your vision to life. And the best part, there are no planning or production fees, just seamless, stress-free event execution. Make your next event unforgettable. Contact us at wecrushevents.com/contact us.
We are so excited to welcome Andrea Bumstead, a powerhouse in customer success, who most recently served as Vice President of Success to multiple companies. And she scaled revenue from $15 million to over $150 million, building customer success into a true growth engine.
She's not just a builder, she's a systems thinker, a team shaper, and a results driver, which we of course love. Andrea consistently delivered 120% net revenue retention, led cross-functional alignment, and designed frameworks teams could actually execute.
And now in 2024, Andrea made a bold leap from VP to founder and CEO of CS Impact, where she now helps scale SaaS companies and helps them unlock expansion revenue. And she builds customer-led organizations. She's also the creator of the viral 15-minute QBR, a concept that challenged the way we think about executive engagement. Andrea, we're so glad to have you today. Welcome to In Great Company.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right. So let's start with something foundational. Andrea, you've built a career and now a company around customer success. In your words, what is customer success? And why is it so critical to an organization's growth, its people, and its purpose?
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? You started with the big meaty question, right? And I really do think customer success right now is going through a bit of an identity crisis. We don't know who we are. It used to be that we were the drivers of adoption, and that's what we were sort of hanging our hat on, if you will. But things have really changed. There's a much more commercial focus on customers and driving revenue out of the base. And CS is in this little bit of an identity crisis where we don't know if we're driving adoption, we're driving revenue, who we are, and if we're going to be taken over by AI. So let me just say that customer success is everything post-sales. That's what I'm an expert in. And particularly, I'm an expert in driving revenue out of the customer base. So ensuring a great customer experience where customers get value or impact from the product, and they want even more value or impact. That really, if we're going to boil customer success down, that's what it is today.
I love that. I love that. So you said, hey, it used to be adoption, but quickly it's turning into revenue. So let's just like bring both together. It's adoption that drives revenue. That's fantastic. I love your definition. All right. So let's rewind a bit, Andrea. You know, the job market hasn't been the best, I think, in many decades, right? Like, I think this is the toughest job market we're seeing. And it is true. Like, I mean, AI is making organizations much more efficient, and what you needed like four people to solve, two people can solve today. And after months of high stakes interviews, you decided to stop searching and start building because you looked at a gap in the market. Can you take us back to that moment where you were like, hey, you know what? Like, it's not about finding a job, it's about creating jobs and launching CS Impact.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here, which is so when I started looking for my next full time role, which was last fall, I knew that the job market was going to be tough. I talked to enough people, I knew it was going to be hard. And so I came out of the gate running. Like I had an executive coach who helped me with interview strategies and outreach. I had a resume writer. I joined Pavilion and took a bunch of courses to upskill myself as a leader. And then I started talking to 25 people a week and adding 50 people to my LinkedIn a week because I knew that once I found a role and I needed an in, I needed to have a connection. And so I needed a much bigger network. And so I did that for 7 months. I talked to 30 companies. I came in at the final round 4 times and still wasn't selected. And one, I kind of had enough where I was like, this is bonkers. Like, this is like, I am working harder than I've ever worked. But more than that, I realized 2 things. One, companies didn't want to commit, especially to a senior leader. It's really uncertain times right now, and organizations don't want to hire a senior leader unless they literally check every box right now because they don't want to take on any sort of a risk. It's not like a couple years ago where you would sort of bet on an up and coming, person. You're going to bring them into a role. That's not the state right now. Like companies almost want like a guarantee. So companies don't want to take on any risk. The other thing that I realized after 7 months is that I didn't want to take on the risk either, that I was starting to get cold feet. And when I was talking to these 30 companies, what I realized is like they all had a lot of problems. Like they all had churn problems, failed acquisitions. They were bootstrapped, no money, huge amount of untapped revenue in the base, low morale because they had, changed a bunch of leaders. So there was these really sort of entrenched problems. And I started to think, you know what? If you hire me and if I can't solve this problem for you and meet your expectation, you're going to fire me. This is probably a year-long engagement, right? So I realized one that companies didn't want to take the risk and I realized I didn't want to take the risk either, but I was more than happy to work for those companies in a fractional basis. More than happy, right? And so I didn't, I realized this. I didn't come out of the gate looking for clients. My first clients actually found me, and reached out to me through LinkedIn. They said, like, we've been following you for a while. We have a project. We'd love your help. So I started working with some clients. I actually went back to one of the companies that I came in last with, and I said, like, look, you need a lot of help. And like right now. You have no other candidates in the pipeline. I was the only person they were interviewing. They had really ambitious growth targets. And I said, like, you're not going to get there with this position being vacant. You should hire me while you're looking for someone. Um, and I was shocked that like literally like that same day, they came back to me and they were like, yes, yes, please. And so that really affirmed for me that like companies don't want to take the risk. And so that's how I launched my business. All of a sudden, I had 2 clients, and I was like, I better create this thing. And so I literally found a name, found a logo, figured out the problem that I was solving, and launched my business in like 2 weeks. And I just got to work and I started working for these clients.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Like talk about taking ownership. and
Yeah.
saying, focusing on the skills and driving impact, because driving impact never goes out of style, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like, yeah, Dita, you have the next question.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the honesty. I'm sure they really appreciated that. I mean, I know I would wanna hear that. So
Yeah.
that's really cool. I always love to hear how entrepreneurs start their stories. It's always so fun to hear. And 2 weeks, good for you. It sounds like you got the client before you had anything ready, which love that even more, right? Fake it till you make it and then figure out how to build a client and take care of everything on the back end. Um, so since the launch, I know you've been kind of building in the open, sharing your logo process, your early clients, which we were just kind of talking about, your brand voice. What has that kind of transparency, because it seems that you are very open and honest, taught you about leadership?
Yeah, I mean, so let me go back and explain why I decided to build out in the open because that's a pretty bold move and it's pretty scary. It's one thing to create your own business, it's another thing to do that in public. But I decided to do it in public on LinkedIn for everyone to see because I knew that there were a lot of people watching and wanting to know if they could do this themselves
Yeah.
and not really knowing how. And I also am very much of the mindset that like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need feedback in real time, right? Like, do you like this logo or this one? Do you like these branding colors or these ones? And so my biggest thing about creating my business is I always said, I don't want to create a business and create this thing and spend all this time on it and go to market and nobody wants to buy it. That's like my worst fear ever, right? You build a website, you have a logo, you think you have everything, you have a pitch deck, and then like nobody it comes knocking and you all of a sudden feel like, you're not worthy. You don't, nobody wants what I'm offering. And so I decided to do it differently where I was like, I don't have anything right now, right? Like I don't have a website. I don't have a pitch deck. I don't have any of the things, but I know how to solve problems. And so that's what I went to market with. I can solve problems. And so then I was like, all right, what do you think about these company names? What do you think about these logos, these colors? And I got real time feedback from my network saying, like, yeah, that resonates. Or like the other day, someone was like, your ICP is actually too broad. And I was like, oh, they're like, tell me about that. And so we had this conversation. And I was like, you're right. My ICP is too broad. My branding colors, I had um 1, 2, 3. I have 4 colors, and people are like, that's too many. You need only 2." And so, it's been great building in public because I have been able to get that real-time feedback. I've changed my company name twice. I've changed my branding twice. I've changed my messaging 3 times, and I've changed my ICP twice in like 2 months, right? Because I need to know where it fits and
Yeah.
what's resonating. And again, I don't want to invest on, in a pitch deck, a website, whatever, all the things, and then it's not resonating. I would rather just go to market with some ideas and get real-time feedback. So, I guess the lesson it's taught me is like, don't be afraid. Tiny experiments are your friend, right?
Yeah.
And don't lock yourself in a closet and build a bunch of stuff and then go out to the world with it. Like that's not how it works. And that's not how it works in SaaS either. If you build a product and you go to market and you think it's the best thing, and then your first couple of like prospects tell you like, no, that doesn't hit the mark, you're crushed, right? Whereas like if you go to the market with an idea and it's not built yet, then you can get real-time feedback and then you know what to build.
I love that concept. I think that would be really encouraging to people that do want to go out on their own and they're scared to do it. It's like you don't have to have everything wrapped up with a bow on top of it. Just go for it and kind of figure it out as you go. So I love how you collaborated with others, and I'm sure that built great relationships with them. And I'm sure some of those became customers. So that's such an interesting way to go about it. And just being super open and honest, I think, is such an interesting approach, and I think would be encouraging to a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, other fractional leaders, people are thinking about going fractional, just always, picking my brain. It was so funny. I spoke with someone this morning who was like, I really want your help, like refining my sort of go to market strategy and like my pitch and everything. So she had assumed that I've been doing this for a while. Like she was like, you've got this figured out. Now, this fractional leader had been doing this for 2 years. She has 2 years on me, right? If anything, I should have been asking her, like, what are your secrets? But she came to me because she was like, you've got it figured out. So like, what are you doing? And then when I told her like, oh, I've only been doing this for a couple months, she was like, oh, like she had no idea. So like I guess I'm faking it till I make it over here, but it, you got to get out there, you got to experiment, and you can't be afraid of the process, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love two things about it. One is obviously this model I think has been described in the Lean Startup book. And
Mm.
most of us in SaaS have kind of like followed that book and small experiments and what's working, what's not working, learning quickly, failing quickly. I love that. The second aspect, actually, the book doesn't talk about, and which I'm picking up on in your conversation, Andrea, is building community around it.
Mm.
Every time you put stuff out and you're asking for help, it's telling your audience that I trust you, I value your feedback, and I really appreciate what you're giving me. And when you look at like how we as human beings love to feel wanted, needed, and this whole exchange, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And what so it brings me to my next question around connection, around human connection. 25 plus conversations a week, like who meets 25 people, new people every week, right? So what were you hearing? Like what were you learning from these conversations? And what common pain points were there, either among the CS folk or among the executive folk, searching for what next in this unprecedented time?
Yeah, yeah. So I was having a lot of conversations and I still do. So I still open up my calendar. In fact, it's open today for my Ask Andrea Anything sessions. Anyone can book time on my calendar today. I get asked a lot of different questions. I get asked for, everything from feedback on a product to career advice to, what's the job market like to how do I succeed in this job market? How do I get into customer success? I don't know if I want to be in customer success. How do I get out of it? Where should I go? So I get asked a lot of different, really interesting questions. I think what I get asked the most is for career advice, just leadership advice, job market, what's next. I spend a lot of time looking at people's LinkedIn profiles and just kind of helping them make small tweaks, but also sometimes I'll just tell them like, sometimes you go through this fun exercise where I'll be like, I'm going to tell you what your LinkedIn says to me because I don't know you. So let me just tell you, like, I'm going to tell you the branding that you currently have out in the universe, whether you have branding out there or not. Let me just tell you what speaks to me. And then and you can listen and absorb it and then tell me if that's actually who you are. And like tell me if that's actually like what you're targeting. And it's often a very sort of light bulb moment for people because they're like, "Oh, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm targeting." I didn't realize that that's what I was sort of putting out into the universe. And so those have been really interesting conversation. So, I mean, I'm trying to answer your question here, but it's like it's mostly I get asked a lot for like career leadership advice,
Yeah,
even how I started my own business.
yeah. No, I love that. So, what I'm hearing is that people are almost in the mode of discovery. I mean,
Mm.
and I guess all of us are in the mode of discovery wherever we are, whether we have, what we know, what we're going to do for 10 years next, because again, like we're creating value all the time. And it's just amazing that that really, like, people are reaching out. It's not like you're frustrated and you need to be in your little bubble. It's like, put yourself out there, wake up, like, smell the coffee, like, find people like yourself who are offering the help. So then you don't feel really stuck, right? So, okay, I love that.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I always try and offer first, right?
Mm.
Because it's so easy to ask people for things, but
Yeah.
I offer first and I put out and I help a lot of people. And then it always kind of boomerangs back, right? But I also
Uh-huh.
like, you know, that people need a lot of help. I'll use a couple of examples, but like CSMs, like, there's not enough training, there's not enough mentorship, there's not enough coaching. Oftentimes they can't afford it, they're paying out of their own pocket. Like, it's just there's not enough. And then even for leaders, there's not enough for them either. Like, there's not enough mentorship, coaching, tangible feedback. Almost like I also, I coach some leaders and they need like an operating partner. Like
Mm.
they just need someone to help them see the forest for the trees, so to speak. So there's just, there's a lot of pressure on people right now. And burnout is like I would say at an all-time high. Like it's crazy. And then the expectations on people, and there's not enough. There's not enough resources and support. And so that's where I really give back, where I'm like, let me help you. Like, let me anything I can do because I know that it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like, we look at, in this company, we call ourselves a sales company first and an events company later, AI company later. So really, we're all about strategy that drives revenue, because revenue is one thing. If you drive, you can buy your freedom, right? Like, you're not beholden to anyone. So our whole next section is about revenue and strategy that drives revenue. So DT, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, and I'm so intrigued by those LinkedIn profile reviews. You may or may not be hearing from me on that after. I would love to see how that works. But I love that you're doing that for people. That's phenomenally helpful, especially for those that are in hunting mode. Okay, yes, revenue, our favorite topic. So we want to talk about one of your big recent wins. You uncovered 1.4 million in new ARR just by rethinking your pricing strategy. So I guess tell us a little bit more about that. What did you discover? And then how did you turn that insight into impact?
Yeah, great question. So I was hired by a company to basically dig into their pricing. So they hadn't increased their pricing for 10 years.
Mm.
10 years. And they hadn't increased their pricing because they were afraid that if they did, they would lose customers. So it was fear-based. But like they have this phenomenal customer base and they wanted to know, like, okay, if we increase the price by this, like, could the market stand it? What would that revenue be? What would the customer messaging be? How would we sort of do this? Right. And so I did this deep dive into their data to basically like figure out, like, okay, if we did an 8% price increase, or if we decrease discounts by this percentage, like what would that look like in terms of revenue for the business? And then like, is it justified? And what would our messaging be? And if a bunch of customers did churn, what would that impact be? And so I basically modeled it for them. And what I discovered is that with a very modest price increase, so we're talking 8%, which is, industry standard, very normal. That's $1.4 million dollars,
Mhm.
in a year, in 1 year. So that doesn't even take into account that like that customer might stick around for 2, 3 more years. You might increase your price by another 8% next year. Like it doesn't even calculate the lifetime value of that customer. We're just talking about in year one, that would be $1.4 million dollars. And it's shocking when you look at that, right? Like with the just like a very modest price increase. And in this case, it was fully justifiable. Like the company had been investing in its product, its services. Like there was, there was meat behind it, right? Like I posted on LinkedIn and a few people were saying like, okay, you can do that if you actually can justify it. And I was like 100%, like there's got to be value, right? But in this case, there was value. And I just thought like, so then I ran this quick calculation of like, okay, now I can't do this perfect calculation, but I was like, let's just say that this company had increased their prices by 8% every year for the past 10 years. What would that would be, right? Which they maybe could have done. Maybe it wasn't always 8%. Maybe some years it was more, whatever. That's $10 million.
Yeah.
I was like, right? So if you're a $50 million business, you could actually be a $60 million business right now,
Yeah.
right? If you hadn't have been so afraid of this. And so what's really interesting about this problem, right? Or this scenario is that they didn't increase prices because they were afraid that they would lose customers. But by not increasing prices, they devalued their product over time, right? Because when you don't increase prices, when you're investing in it and your competition is doing, maybe they're increasing prices or whatever, then like your sense of the value of the product actually decreases. We're like, like this this product is, it hasn't changed over the past, or they haven't changed their pricing. And so in the customer's mind, they're actually thinking like, is this as good as I thought it was, right? And so they're actually introducing some risk by not increasing their prices.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyways, just like I think oftentimes customer success, when you think of customers, we don't think about revenue, right? We think about like sales driving revenue, new business revenue. But customer success is actually sitting on all the money, right? Like that's where all the money is. And even an 8% increase, $1.4 million, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, I'm we often just think about like revenue as like acquisition, but as companies grow, they're relying on driving revenue out of the base. And
Yeah.
so that's where you have to really pay attention. And that's where you can get compounding effects in terms of the revenue. We don't talk about that enough. We don't think about that enough. We don't calculate it enough. And so then when it comes time for like budget cuts, the first department that companies look at is like, oh, well, we don't need those like CS people over there. And I'm saying, you do. They're sitting on money. Like, yeah.
Yeah. This is amazing, Andrea. This is absolutely amazing because what you just outlined is not so much a department and its name and what it stands for, but it is that the department drives revenue. And as long as you're able to tie your role back to this is the upsell, this is the cross sell, this is the churn reduction that I've been able to drive for this company, like it's almost like a business case at that point, and your company would be, can I say, stupid to not look into that and to say, okay, like what's really going on. Now I'm really interested because obviously I've seen many companies try to meet their revenue goals via price increases without the actual value behind it. It's the same product, it's just that they've experienced inflation or whatever. They haven't invested in the product. In fact, the product is now less competitive in the market because their competitors have out engineered their products. When so I'm trying to get a picture of like what you've seen in the market, like how much churn do you see? Do you see any churn, like even at this 8% price increase? And the good thing about SaaS models is that that people come up for renewal every single month, so you can say, hey, the first renewal, like, I mean, what are we seeing? And then is there like a normalization effect that happens after the initial shock? Like, does that initial shock like continue to exist? Like, what are the patterns that you're watching in the market?
Yeah, I mean, so you're watching like how do those first customers respond? How does the market respond? To go back to your earlier point, like you need to constantly be investing in your product, right? I get inflation. It's just not a very strong argument, right? For the customer, like their prices also increase. Like I get it. All of our costs go up, right? So I always say, like, you should be investing in your product. And that price increase, you need to be able to justify it. And you obviously want to pulse on the market too, of like, okay, what's the price points of your competitors? How are they going to market? Where are you in terms of price point? Are you the premium solution? Are you not? So you obviously want to do some more analysis around that, a little bit of experimentation. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's research and analysis and a bit of experimentation and the ability to pivot if you need to, right? That like, oh, okay, that's not landing. Maybe we need to try this. And because you do have customers renewing every month, you can do that. So it's, I've gone through whole courses on like how to price your solution. And there's an art and a science to it, right? There's definitely a science and then there's the art. So like just, that willingness to experiment, um, and then pivoting sort of as you need to. I have this rule that if I'm 70% sure, that's good enough. Like, let's go on 70% and then and commit like 110% to making it successful. And if we're wrong, like new information comes up, right? Whatever, realize that we're wrong, pivot. Like, don't be afraid to pivot. But I think where people and companies get stuck is in like that analysis paralysis of like, we want to be like 80 to, 90% sure, even 100% sure. Like, your competitors ahead of you by that point, right? So, like, if you're 70% sure, like, you got to move.
Yeah.
I
Which
love that,
brings
which is kind of ties into what I was just gonna ask you, which is so funny talking about that 70%, which I love that. You're talking about just momentum over perfection. 70% good enough, let's roll with it, and adjusting as you go. For organizations that are used to kind of what we sort of talked about at the beginning, that are used to nailing down every detail, perfect bow around it, how do you help them embrace that shift and that mindset?
Mm. It reminds me of I interviewed with a company, and in this case, the CEO was like he came from an engineering background and really liked to like understand the details and like, you know, um ensure that he was making the right decision before moving, and was okay with moving slower and getting it right. And I he had a blog and I read a lot of what he wrote. And I thought that's a really different approach because I'm used to moving fast, right? Like everything is like go, go, go fast. But his approach was much more methodical, much more thought out, much slower. So it was kind of the antithesis of mine. And there are merits to both, is what I sort of, came to the conclusion of that like the merits of his is that like he's so focused. Like he knows exactly like what are the principles of this organization? How do we make decisions? He looks at the data, like, so focused. Whereas I've been in other organizations on the other side of that spectrum that move too fast, right? We've got too many priorities. We don't have enough focus. We've got too many irons in the fire, like, and it starts to get a little chaotic, right? And then you kind of have my 70% rule in here where it's like, okay, which is basically saying, yes, there needs to be some methodology. And yes, you should dig into the data. And yes, you should do your due diligence, but to 70%. You don't have to get to 100%. And so I think it is striking that balance. Like a lot of times SaaS companies talk about how fast they move, right? Um, but to be profitable and to like make good decisions, sometimes you also need to move a little slower. And so it's just having kind of that perspective where it's like, okay, here are our focus areas. We're going to dig in here, doing some of that like data and analysis and understanding, but not to the point where you're not moving, right? Where you're like, you're stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you described is the stopping distance problem, which is like when you stop analysis paralysis, like you almost have to draw boundaries. And I think it's been mathematically proven to be around that 70%, right? Like you start
Yeah.
at the 70% and then you go, which is amazing. In terms of the next section, Andrea, I'd really want to get to the 15-minute QBR, right?
Mm.
And obviously, I've been at companies where QBRs last a couple of days. And there's usually some partying involved in the night and whatever, right? Like, I mean, it can get drawn out, and especially here in the Bay Area, people are going to Napa for their trips to, yeah. So I looked at the 15-minute QBR, and it's like, okay, complete antithesis of some of the QBRs I've experienced. And I'm really curious around the 15-minute QBR and how you build connection at the same time with customers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. So the 15-minute QBR is the most asked question that I get. And I've posted about it on LinkedIn 2 times now, and both times it's gone viral, which shocked me because I thought, well, it goes viral once. I was like, okay, 2 times. And the second time I posted it, it actually went even more viral than the first time. So it really hits a nerve with people. And I think it hits a nerve because we're tired of the QBR, right? We're tired of executives not showing up. We're tired of the hours it takes to prepare them. We're tired of the time that it takes to run them. We're kind of tired of them, right? And as a leader, because we would use different vendors for different things, and they would always ask me for QBR, right? And I would always decline because they're a waste of time. And yet I would turn around and tell my team, you need to have X number of QBRs this month. So I was being a hypocrite, right? Like I have such a love-hate relationship with QBRs. So let me just tell you a little story of how the 15-minute QBR came up. I was training a customer success team, not on the 15-minute QBR. We were talking about high impact customer conversations. And in this training, it came up as a question from a couple different CSMs, and they said, how do I get executives to show up to my QBR?
Mm.
And I was like, interesting. So I was thinking, okay, so they won't attend, just like I wouldn't attend. And I said, why don't you just run the QBR in 15 minutes? And they kind of looked at me and they were like, what? Like, how? And so I said, okay, here's what I think. I was like, when you get an executive in your call, on the phone, whatever, when you get their attention, so one, it's really hard to get their attention. When you get it, you probably only have it for 15 minutes. Like any executive will agree to a 15-minute meeting. They won't agree to half an hour. They definitely won't agree to an hour, but 15 minutes is a doable meeting. But in that 15 minutes, you as a vendor, the only question that they want to answer in their mind is, am I getting value from your solution? And should I keep spending money on it? That's the only question they want to answer. That's the question I wanted to answer when vendors would book QBRs with me, which is just like, am I getting enough value here? And is it enough to justify continuing to renew and spend money? And so I said to the CS team, I said, all you need to cover is here's the value that you're getting from the product. Here's how you get more value. So here's how I've seen our other customers using it. Here's how you can get more. And here are 3 recommendations I have. That's it. That's all. And that answers the question of, am I getting value? How do I get more value? And should I keep spending money?
Hmm. I love that because you're solving for executive attention spans. How are you at the same time building relationships, and at what level are you building relationships? Because they're the champions of your product and then they're the executives. And how are you, I guess, building relationships at scale?
Yeah, so you're still building your relationships, right? You're still working with your champion, you're still working with your end users, you're involving your decision maker. That 15-minute QBR is when you want the executive's attention. When you want to say, look, I've been working with your team for the past 6 months. Let me help you understand exactly how you're getting value, how you get more, and what I recommend. And when you do that with the executive and you answer that question of like, should I keep spending money? Well, one thing, let me back up. Let's say that conversation goes well, right? There's value that's already happening. They can get more value and there's recommendations. So that's great because it solidifies in the executive's mind that like this is worth the money and I'm going to keep it in my budget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But let's say that they're not getting value, right?
Mm-hmm.
By involving the executive, you want their team to move. You want them to do something, right? And so you basically say, you're getting some value from our product, but I'm concerned that you're not getting a full return on your investment. Here's what I see our other customers doing that you're missing. And here are 3 recommendations. And one of those recommendations is I need you to help light a fire under your
Yeah.
team to get you the value, right?
Yeah.
And so in that case, what you're really saying to the executive is, I hear you, I see you, I want you to get value, and I need your help. And
Yeah.
here's exactly how you can help me, right?
Yeah.
Get value. So you're securing the renewal, but in their mind, you're helping them get value. So it doesn't matter if the conversation is great and they're getting lots of value. It doesn't matter if they're not getting a lot of value. You've got this executive's attention, so you have to use it.
I love that because what I'm hearing on the underneath of it is just authenticity and honesty. Like
Yeah.
you're not doing stuff that other people are doing and other people are generating value by. So what can we do to help you measure up? Right. So
Totally. That's it, right?
yeah.
And companies
Cutting
are
the fluff.
competitive,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they want to get that value. They want to be, leveraging it just like their competition is. Like they want that.
Yeah.
Um, if vendors had have approached me with a conversation like that, I would have agreed 100% of the time, but they didn't. They approached me with like, "Do you have an hour so I can go through 30 slides of like our latest product updates and I don't know, blah blah blah." And I was like, "No, I don't have an hour. I just need you to tell me if I should keep spending money on this thing."
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's fantastic. DT, we'll go to building teams and trust.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you were very thorough. 2 of the questions that we had, you answered. So I love that. I love the 15-minute QBR. What a cool concept. And I love how it went viral. I bet there was definitely a lot of opinions on that. So yeah, talking about the teams and trust. So you've led CS teams of various sizes, multiple functions. When you enter a new organization, what do you prioritize in the first 30 days to kind of build trust and have everybody get into alignment?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, I mean, my answer would be different depending on if I was going in as a full-time operator versus a fractional leader, right? So, as a full-time operator, I always went in and really focused on building that trust out of the gate, and I would take the time to do it, to really get to know people as people before I started digging into the business. And I usually took about 2 weeks to do that, really get to know people as people before I started asking the more difficult questions. When you're a fractional leader, you don't have that luxury, right? You're like your whole engagement just might be 2 weeks, like it might be a project, right? And so you have to come in with some credibility out of the gate and ideally a warm introduction or something from someone that says like I trust this person, right?
Mhm.
Like, I trust her, she's going to do a good job. So either you've already demonstrated it through like a mini project or something that they're like, yeah, okay, we can trust her, or you've got some sort of like vouch of trust from somebody that they trust, right? Another leader, another CEO, a company that they respect. Because when you're a fractional leader, you're in there to get to work, right? And so like building that trust, you don't have a lot of time. And even, I'll think of an example here, but I was coaching a CS team in one of the companies that I'm working with, and that team doesn't know me. I'd been working as, this outside consultant for them. I was going to talk with the actual team members now. They didn't know me, and that was exactly what I was thinking of. Like, how can I build trust in like 5 minutes so that I can actually coach this team because they don't know who I am. They don't know what I've been doing here. They don't know my work. And so I really had to come in with like a strong sort of like, here's who I am, here's what I do. but also I'm a real person, right? And I know that your job is hard. And so I'm just really here to help you. And that will be success here. So it's kind of that mix then of like some credibility building, but then that authenticity to say like, I'm really here to help you be successful. And that would be success. If you're successful, that's success for me. And that starts to build that trust too.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And plus, any listener listening to you right now just knows that you don't bullshit, right? Like, it's not about putting lipstick on a pig. It's like saying, hey, here is a pig, and it might have some amazing uses being a pig. So, right. So that I love that. So that brings me to my next question. Can you describe your best of me quadrant exercise?
Oh, yeah, I can. So I'll try and do this fairly quickly. But basically, when I enter into an organization, and I've done this as a full-time operator, I don't think I could do it as a fractional leader, but as a full-time operator, I love running this best of me exercise, which is basically 4 quadrants. You have the team fill it out, and it's you get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, I need from you is, and you can count on me too. And they just fill it out. And what I love about this exercise is it's a really easy way to get to know people, um, and to get to sort of the heart of things, right? Like you get the best of me in the morning. You get the worst of me at the end of the day, right? Some people, it's like, get the best of me after 2 coffees, worst of me, like, first thing in the morning, like whatever it is, right? Um, and then what you can count on me for, I love because it's basically offering help where it's saying like, here's how I can help you and you can count on me for that. And then what I need from you, I also love because it's really direct. It's like, what I need from you is a safe space to be myself. What I need from you is a little bit of grace sometimes. What I need from you is clear direction, and priorities. Like whatever that is. And so I have the team do these exercises, present them to their team members, which is always good for a laugh. Like there's always something in there that's funny, right? Um, and then we file them all in a place that we can see them. And the reason we do that is I also teach my teams how to give feedback to each other. And I say, when you go to give feedback to someone, pull up their best of me exercise just so you kind of know, like, should you give this feedback first thing in the morning, the end of the day? Like, do they really value respect? Do they need some humor? Like, just kind of know, read the room, right? Which is really hard to do virtually. And so we file them so that they can refer back to them for more difficult conversations.
I love that, and we're stealing that, sorry. We
You
have to
can
do
have
that.
it. You
I
can
love
have
it
it.
so much, that's so great. Because we've done, like, the assessments, and everybody can see those, but they're so lengthy, and you have to read them, and everybody's work style, but that, again, cutting the fluff, straight to the point, th getting rid of a million different things that need to be looked at, it's the 4 things, I love that, I think that's such a genius idea. It's a great way,
Yeah.
and you're saying that everybody shares theirs aloud
Yep.
and
Everybody shares them. Yep. Leaders, individual contributors, right? And it just it's to set you up for success when you have to have a more challenging conversation.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you for that. I know the listeners are gonna enjoy that too. Okay, I know Sindhu, I know we always talk and talk and talk and could talk forever. I'm gonna jump to before we kind of wrap it up today, because obviously we love the personal part of things. We've talked about some pretty amazing things on this podcast, but a little bit about you before we kind of get out of here. So you've helped companies grow, but more than that, it sounds like you've really just helped people grow, especially with kind of your unique approach and how you kind of come in there, build trust, and help them essentially. So if your kids getting deep here, getting a little deep, if your kids listen to this 10 years from now, what do you hope they hear in how you kind of lived and led?
Oh, yeah. So I have 3 children. They're 2, 6, and 8. If they listen to this in 10 years, I mean, what I want them to hear is it's okay to be yourself.
Yeah.
And two, it's okay to lead. It's okay to do it your way. Carve your own path. Do your own thing. And do that in a way that is you and authentically you. Both of those things are okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for that, Andrea. Like literally, my kids come up to me and they're like, Mama, but you don't supervise us. I'm like, sweetie, nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm gonna suck today. Right? Like nobody does that. Everyone gets up in the morning saying, I'm gonna kick some ass today. So I like literally once I know you're gonna kick ass, like, well, what do I have to worry about? Like I don't need, and both of them are straight A students, like literally living their best lives in their own powerful ways. And I'm like, yeah,
They're leading you. Let's be real. They're telling you what to do.
oh yes, that too. That too. Mama, you're not measuring up here. I'm like,
I
okay.
keep it real.
Very real. Oh my goodness. So, Andrea, I want to wrap this up and really thank you on that note for your courage, for your clarity, and just the example you're setting. Because, again, like I think we've been very vulnerable in this conversation. Like, I mean, we talked about what's working, what's not working, and why. Like, we're 3 months here and we're doing this for our kids in a way that, like, they can see us enjoy our full power. So until next time, lead with courage, build with purpose, and always stay in great company.
Yes. And to our listeners, if this conversation resonated, please pass it along and leave a review and check out Andrea's work at csimpact.co. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you, team.
Thanks,
Thank you. Take care.
Andrea.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to In Great Company. Subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who values strong business relationships. Until next time, stay connected and keep thriving.